Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today. I hope you like this new setup. I came up with it on the fly because we need to talk about something pretty important. Originally, today's upload was going to be about the next-gen update for The Witcher 3, but then I saw this and I went, nope, that's tomorrow's upload. We are talking about this right now. As you can see, the headline is, Feds likely to challenge Microsoft's $69 billion Activision takeover. Not really the most shocking news probably to you all, but once you read the fine print, you're going to be pretty surprised because it's possible that this deal can be dead. So if you're new here, you're interested in Xbox news and information, updates on the Activision deal, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. This is just a format I'm going to try out for this video. If you like me, just scrolling through an article, reading, offering some quick thoughts. That's what I want to do for these more impromptu reaction videos. So let's read together. The Federal Trade Commission, or as you know them, the FTC, is likely to file an antitrust lawsuit to block Microsoft's $69 billion takeover of video game giant Activision Blizzard, which we know makes Call of Duty and Candy Crush, according to 3 people with knowledge of the matter. A lawsuit would be the biggest move by the FTC yet under Chair Lina Khan to rein in the power of the world's largest technology companies. And we talk a little bit here about how Microsoft has had their antitrust issues in the past. As we all know, we're pretty familiar with that. Continuing on, it says, a lawsuit challenging the deal is not guaranteed, and the FTC's 4 commissioners have yet to vote out a complaint or meet with lawyers for the companies, 2 of the people said. However, the FTC staff reviewing the deal are skeptical of the company's arguments, those people said. So they're not crazy about what they're seeing from Microsoft thus far. They feel like they got one hand behind the back a little bit here, trying to hide something that's on the way, because we know they've been pretty transparent with their offers about Call of Duty. Even recently, a New York Times report came out where we talked about in yesterday's video on how they were offering Call of Duty for 10 years. And a lot of folks in the public eye were going, well, they'd be stupid to not take that. Well, actually, we'll see here in this article confirmation on what Sony had to say about that, which was, spoiler alert, nothing at all yet. So it says the investigation remains ongoing, but much of the heavy lifting is completed, including depositions of Microsoft Chief Executive Satya Nadella and Activision head Bobby Kotick, the people with knowledge of the investigation said. If the agency, being the FTC, does move ahead with a case, it could come as soon as next month, said the people, all of whom were granted anonymity to discuss a confidential matter. So, as you can see here, it could come as soon as next month. Now, it's funny. I always take December off. That's when I get my nice holiday break in for 2 to 3 weeks. And it ain't going to happen, is it? They're going to decide to cancel this deal while I'm lounging there opening Christmas gifts. I could just feel it because it's funny. Usually around this time, things slow down. It's the day before Thanksgiving here in the U.S. So it's like, oh, yeah, it's going to be a chill day. Like, yeah, let's talk about The Witcher 3. Nope. But this is fascinating. So they're looking at legitimately shutting this thing down. And I think we need to be very wary of this because a lot of Xbox fans, number one, haven't considered this reality. Sadly, I've gone on record. You go watch old videos. I don't care if this goes through or not. I am excited by the idea of old Activision IP being revived. Possibly if Xbox were to revive back compat, some of the games they could bring back that way would be dope to see. There's a lot of exciting potential in what could be done here. But the reality is, at least to me, that this always had a chance of being canceled. But now we're seeing the FTC step in. We've heard from, for example, the UK CMA. A lot of people labeled that as incompetence. But like the FTC holds the biggest hammer, if you will. And what they say goes. So everyone falls in line with what they're pretty much saying. So it says central to the FTC's concerns is whether acquiring Activision would give Microsoft an unfair boost in the video game market. Microsoft is number 3, as we've read before, to industry-leading Sony Interactive Entertainment and its PlayStation console. Sony, however, has emerged as the deal's primary opponent, as we all know, telling the FTC and regulators in other countries that if Microsoft made hit games like Call of Duty exclusive to its platform, Sony would be significantly disadvantaged, which the FTC has declined to comment on the matter. Now, this may seem overly vague, but in a little bit, they do get into exactly what those concerns are beyond Call of Duty. So just stick with me a little bit here. Now, over in this section, they go over the October statement by the UK CMA, something we've talked about here on the channel. If you're a listener on Defining Duke, you've caught the play-by-play since this all began back in January here. In its own statement, also released by the UK regulator on Wednesday, Microsoft accuses Sony of making self-serving statements to maintain its number 1 position in gaming, such as the suggestion that the incumbent market leader, Sony, with clear and enduring market power, could be foreclosed by the smallest of the 3 console competitors, Xbox, as a result of losing access to one title, which would be Call of Duty, is not credible. So you got to recognize here, PlayStation's going all out on making sure this deal does not go through, and Xbox is going all out to the point of trying to make themselves, by the way, owned by the richest company on planet Earth, going all out pretending they are the smallest competitor when Microsoft wields the sharpest blade in the room and could break out that wallet and win over pretty much any deal. So I understand why, FTC is kind of wary of this one. Now, here is where it continues to get a little interesting because a little more spice was thrown into this report. To a lesser extent, Google is also an opponent of the deal, according to two people with knowledge of the matter. The company has argued that Microsoft has purposely degraded the quality of its Game Pass subscription service when used with Google Chrome's operating system, and owning Activision would further its incentive to do so, ultimately steering hardware sales towards Microsoft and away from Google, the people said. And, I've read this article a couple of times. We did a pickup for Defining Duke. Reading it here, I just don't get this part. I just don't understand where Google's coming from with this galaxy brain conspiracy. It's probably because of the keyword here. To a lesser extent, Google is also an opponent of the deal because, look, they are, as they say here, a minor player in the gaming industry and are winding down their own service in Stadia. So I don't know. I feel like they are the lesser of the two that are going to be taken seriously here. And otherwise, major players in the industry like 2K and EA have been pretty cool with this. Ubisoft as well with this deal going through. They don't see a threat to that type of stuff. And I imagine those are the ones who should take more seriously than competing platform holders who are worried about losing free Call of Duty money. But it should still all be heard out. However, as we continue on, it says Microsoft has pledged to continue making Call of Duty available on Sony's PlayStation console and recently made an offer to Sony to give access to the game for the next 10 years. As we all know, we covered that in yesterday's video. The offer was reported by the New York Times. It's not known how Sony responded to the offer, and it did not respond for comment on Wednesday, which is the day we're recording this video, for those who are wondering, to timestamp this. The FTC's concerns, remember I said that there is a little more detail here, extend beyond Call of Duty. And investigators are trying to determine how Microsoft could leverage future unannounced titles to boost its gaming business, according to two people with knowledge of the review. That is an important key quote here. Again, going back into that kind of knife behind the back. They don't know what banger games Activision are working on that could boost Game Pass, that could boost Xbox console sales. To me, I'm like, that's the point of an acquisition. You get a product that enhances your business model and addresses what consumers want more from your company. So that's one thing that it's pretty obvious, the fear here. But at the same time, I wonder what this could lead to, because I think back to the Epic and Apple court case and what happened there, where we were starting to get emails from Phil Spencer leaked. There were redacted titles being put out there. And I feel like if this does go to court and this is reviewed in a court of law, we might get some incidental game leaks here, because they will have to be clear on what they're working on, what they're doing, and how it will not impact the gaming business in such a dramatic way that PlayStation would be knocked out of the business like they seem to fear. But still, something worth keeping an eye on here. This is definitely one of my most, I feel, key quotes from the entire article. There were comments from Activision. They say any suggestion that the transaction could lead to anti-competitive effects is completely absurd. This merger will benefit gamers and the U.S. gaming industry, especially as we face increasingly stiff competition from abroad, said Activision spokesperson Joe Christianat. We are committed to continuing to work cooperatively with regulators around the globe to allow the transaction to proceed, but will not hesitate to fight to defend the transaction if required. And it's funny because this goes beyond even the video games. We got to think of Bobby Kotick. This man's still running Activision. I know we like to pretend he's not because we're so focused on all the games, and I understand that, but they run a pretty heinous organization over there. And one of the benefits of Xbox taking over, as it's been reported multiple times, is he would be gone. And potentially Activision would be a more healthier place to work for. But with this deal possibly being canceled, I would also say ethically, could you really argue gaming would be in a better spot as it is now? I do feel that I understand PlayStation's desire for free Call of Duty cash, but we're going to talk a lot in this video about the impact this is going to have on how Microsoft responds if it's canceled. In fact, we'll do that now because there's still more reading. Ladies and gentlemen, what I think about with this deal often enough is how, when this is shut down, if it's shut down, I should say, the message is being sent to Xbox and what that means. Because to me, the message that's being sent here, if they say, no, this deal cannot go through, it's anti-competitive, you're going to disrupt the gaming market, PlayStation will go out of business. What it says to Microsoft is go out and play PlayStation's game, which has been fair game for decades. Go out and play Nintendo's game, which has been fair play for decades. And Xbox tried to do that, for example, with the Xbox One, where they went out and did the Rise of the Tomb Raider. And oh man, the public backlash was fierce. Of course, because it was a sequel, and they were making that random game in the series exclusive. So I understood some of the pushback, but I also thought, look, PlayStation's been doing this for a while, but Xbox was vilified that era, and it completely changed the public perspective of them and their business moves, and they looked desperate and unfair in those times. But when you cancel this deal and you say, nope, not this, Xbox is going to have a ton of FU money just sitting there, and they're going to go ahead, take a look at what's going on with Microsoft, with Activision, with PlayStation, and think, well, we're going to spend this on exclusive deals. We're going to go buy smaller studios. We're going to do those types of things because that's what PlayStation got away with as the market leader, so to say. They went out and got Bungie, no problem. That deal concluded. They went out and got a ton of other smaller studios like Nixxes for PC port development. They went out and obviously have dropped money on exclusivity clauses for things like Final Fantasy 16. You're incentivizing Microsoft to play that game, and I think that's dangerous because what happens after this is you get a market that's more segmented off. The benefit of Activision joining the fold with Xbox is you get Call of Duty on Switch, you get Call of Duty on cloud, you get Call of Duty on Game Pass. Game Pass is not just walled behind an Xbox fortress, it's in that ecosystem, but it's on smart TVs, it's on tablets, phones, computers. It's going to go to Steam, by the way, which is huge. I mean, there are so many benefits there. And I feel like the walls are lessened compared to an alternate reality where Xbox says, okay, we got to play PlayStation's game and erect even more walls and say, well, if you want to play this highly anticipated first-person shooter, you've got to come over here to Xbox. You've got to come over here and see what we're offering because we're not going to make it available elsewhere because that's the game that's been set up. That's the game we've been told to play. And I just feel like when you're PlayStation, who has a lot of money, and you're going up against the richest company on planet Earth right now, that's a dangerous game to be playing, in my personal opinion. I think it's a really dangerous game to play because it seems like they value, and they had to have checked this out, but sometimes I wonder with PlayStation's comments if they really do think before they speak, but they're valuing the Call of Duty money above competing with Microsoft. And I understand because, there's a creative decision in that too. Like, it takes two to tango. It's not like Microsoft shows up with $2 million and every company flocks to them. It's about creativity, liberation, that type of stuff. But Microsoft could easily take over that market with money. And if there was a willingness from both parties, I think it's game over. And PlayStation needs to be careful because they're inviting Microsoft to play their game. And there's still more here, but I wanted to make sure that I touched on that here early enough in the video before people click off, just because I see the watch time, and my watch time on both this and Retro Rebound is really good, but I also know that some of y'all do not hang around for the full video. I can see it all. Anyway, Activision also disputes Epic's allegations, saying that they are nonsense. We can confirm that Google has never asked us, pressured us, or made us agree to not compete with Google Play, and we've already submitted documents and testimony that prove this. Microsoft spokesperson David Cuddy said the company is prepared to address the concerns of regulators, including the FTC and Sony, to ensure the deal closes with confidence. We'll still trail Sony and Tencent in the market after the deal closes, and together Activision and Xbox will benefit gamers and developers and make the industry more competitive. That key point here of developers is really important because now PlayStation is saying it's going to be a worse industry for developers if this deal goes through, which I don't know how like the indie developer or the developer working on levels in Ubisoft is going to be impacted by this deal. But Sony's jumping through they're doing some mental gymnastics. Let's be real. Continuing on, we're going to conclude this article. The FTC technically does not have to take any action at this point. Regulators in Europe and the UK have also recently opened in-depth probes, meaning the companies couldn't close the deal until spring at the earliest. That means if the FTC does sue, it would likely bring a case in its own in-house administrative court. The agency typically challenges deals first in federal court to block them, with a temporary injunction pending a trial in its in-house court. Without the imminent risk of the deal closing, however, it would be difficult to get a temporary injunction. The companies have until July next year to close the deal without renegotiating the agreement. An administrative lawsuit filed later this year or in January would be unlikely to be resolved by July and could potentially force the companies to abandon the deal. Clock's ticking. And if this gets submitted, it's pretty much over. And that is an insane reality to think about, because all of Xbox's stagnation this year, especially in the news cycle, has come from this. And they've done everything they really can to make sure this deal goes through. But the FTC really cannot intervene, it says, and close the deal until spring. Sorry. The deal can't close until spring at the earliest. And the FTC, if they get involved, will push it back past July, which is the latest that it can close. And that on its own right is crazy to think about, that just timing. Like, they could sort it out, but it will forever be the what could have been story in video games. But obviously, we're going to track this as it develops. A fantastic article from Politco. And I hope you all enjoyed this format. A little bit different, but I wanted to offer some thoughts real quickly on this because this is a huge deal. The deal very well may be dead. And what does that mean? Well, again, I think it invites Xbox to play PlayStation's game. And I don't know if that's smart. I don't, because that's a lot of money to play with. If that money rolls back, you got the $3 billion termination fee with Activision. And then from there, it's like, okay, well, we got over $60 billion. We're ready to invest in gaming. Can we invest it in Game Pass? Can we invest it in exclusivity? Can we invest in a new IP, new studio, other smaller studio acquisitions? I just think like this money can go far and wide. $69 billion is a lot of money. So ultimately, just my thoughts on the situation. I'm looking forward to seeing yours. So please fire away in the comments down below, along with thoughts on this format. It's not going to be the template for the channel, but definitely something that if news like this breaks, I'd like to just get on it right away. So please do fire away. And with that, take great care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.